Man, what is it with George R. R. Martin and these weddings, huh? You just can't have a peaceful wedding. Episode 5 of House of Dragon just went up, and I actually made a video reacting to the first 4 episodes, but after the 5th, you gotta include it, right? Especially because of the things that I want to talk about with the 4 first episodes. I want to include how they actually subverted some of those things in this episode. Great episode. You can really feel that now the players have been set up. The game is about to be played. I'm going to start with some of my, I don't want to call it critiques or complaints about the first 4 episodes, rather their observations about the differences between the first 4 seasons of Game of Thrones and House of Dragons, and what they're doing differently, why I like it, why I might want it to lean more toward the old show, and what I hope to see. So my biggest complaint about House of Dragon thus far, until episode 5, is the lack of political players. When we had Game of Thrones at its peak, we had in King's Landing Tyrion, Tywin, Sansa, Cersei, Varys, Littlefinger, and the Tyrells, who were all manipulating each other, all scheming, all trying to gain power, and all having all of their little secrets. They were all very dynamic characters. If you put them in a scene together, stuff was going to happen, right? I've sort of been missing that dynamic in this show up until the 5th episode. It's been very much setting up these characters, and now you get it, because I think episode 5 shows that it's been trying to set up Alicent and Rhaenyra, but they start out as these very young girls who are still like trying to learn the Game of Thrones. And now they are learning, and Alicent in particular is finally starting to take part. We see that scene with Sir Criston and Rhaenyra where he asks her to run off with him, and where she's like, I am the crown. That is her midpoint moment, we would say, in narrative structure. She is committed now to the crown and to becoming queen. She's no longer complaining about her lot. She's doing it, and she's trying to make the best of it. But that brings me back to my biggest critique of Rhaenyra thus far. It's been very frustrating to look at her being like, oh, well, I should be the heir, but now I am the heir, but my father's definitely going to make me not the heir anymore. And instead of fighting for the love of the people that would then support her once her father died, and instead of, like, her father also does not at all lay the groundwork for her taking over as queen, it's kind of frustrating to watch, especially because Daenerys was so great at making people love her and follow her. So Daenerys shows, like, you can definitely have a queen who has a dedicated following, but you need to build up that following. And Rhaenyra just does not do that. She just pulls into herself. So for the first 4 episodes, it feels very much like Daemon is the only very dynamic character. And even though he is a thrill to watch, dynamic characters are most fun when they are put together with other dynamic characters, like the great scene between, the old Lady Tyrell, Lady of Thorns, and then Lord Tywin, like when they were put in a room together and were talking, it was just like, oh my god, it's a battle, but you need that with dynamic characters. They need to be put in scenes with other great characters in order to really shine. And so I've kind of been missing that, but I think we're getting it now. You could really feel with this episode that it was building up, and when the wedding came around and you saw Alicent finally, when she stepped into that throne room, you were like, oh my god, okay, the Game of Thrones is starting now. But then it was kind of confusing with the way that the episode ended. I was kind of unsure of what happened. Why did the ruckus start? Was it just Sir Criston who went batshit crazy? Because those guards came running in, and with Lady Alicent wearing green, and the Hightower people noticing that, I was like, oh man, it's a coup. She's going to try to kill Rhaenyra and kill the king. And I was fully expecting her to pull out a knife and just stab him, but she was just as clueless as the rest. So I was really confused about what was going on there. And also very sad that they actually killed their gays. I was so excited for this relationship dynamic, really hoping for Laerna and Rhaenyra to become friends and allies, and it was very frustrating also to see how quickly, I don't remember, but the redheaded dude who is Laerna's lover, why did he go so quickly to Sir Criston? It was just, a very bad move, you know, to play your hand that quickly. You should observe him. What is the actual relationship between him and Rhaenyra? Are they in good standing? Like, what? I think he would just move too quickly. And for a moment there, I thought he would be like, oh my god, he is a player. He is here to play the game and win the throne for Laerna, and he's loyal to him, and that's just really, that would be really great, right? And then he just died, and that was frustrating. He made such a bad move there. Also, you know, underlining how important trust and picking the right people to trust is. But that's actually something I really like about House of the Dragon. Like, one thing I was always missing in Game of Thrones was the character dynamics between the main characters, because everyone got split up so quickly. But one of the great things here is that we have a lot more friendships and people who actually like each other. And that's something I love about Daemon, is that he clearly loves Viserys and Rhaenyra and the Targaryen house and name. He is not mad. He is power hungry, he is chaotic, selfish, willing to do some very shady things, but he is not Joffrey. And he is not the Mad King. He could probably become the Mad King, but you know, there's some genuine sympathetic things about him, and you sort of want him and Rhaenyra to get together. I'm very excited about seeing where this goes. I also really love how they've been jumping in time, right? Something that Game of Thrones did not do, but here I love time skips, because then we get to see, oh, it's been half a year, it's been 2 years, what has happened since then, what are the character dynamics now, seeing Rhaenyra and Daemon see each other for the first time in 4 years, etc., etc. There's so many great things going on, particularly with the relationships between Rhaenyra and Viserys, Viserys and Alicent, and Alicent and Rhaenyra. That's an interesting triangle going on there, and it was so heartbreaking when Alicent says, "Congratulations, stepdaughter," and you're like, oh my god, she fully severed the relationship at that point. I thought Viserys was a very interesting character, because Daemon keeps calling him a bad king, and he is definitely not the best king, but he's also not the worst. He is genuinely trying to do a good job, but failing sometimes and succeeding at other times. He should definitely have been laying a better groundwork for Rhaenyra. Like that scene where he is talking about how he wishes he had been tested so he could have shown himself to be a better king. You were tested, dude. You had one heir. You had a daughter. Your job was to secure that there would be no war when you died. That would have been your legacy. You were supposed to secure the line. That was your test, and you failed it. So that was a very interesting scene, to see that he, at the end, does not realize what his test was, and that he was tested. I was a bit sad about the twist of the wedding, but I'll see where it goes. But I was kind of feeling like, now we've built up to this moment where we have all of these players. We have Laena, we have his lover, we have Rhaenyra, so Criston, Alicent, and I was fully waiting like, the Alicent, Criston, Rhaenyra dynamic would build up over some time, but they kind of moved very quickly with that. We can see now, like at the end of this episode 5, that Alicent is definitely taking charge of Criston, right? She's pulling him to her side, which is a very clever move. I was just expecting it to take a little longer. It would have been great to see the game, right? Because like, it feels like the game was set up and then the payoff just happened so quickly. And I was very sad to see Laerna's lover go, because I feel he could have brought an interesting dynamic. I hope he gets a new lover who is just as interesting or more. It's great to see that Daemon is not the only player anymore, but I think they need to do some work with Daemon, because he's sort of flailing right now. It's like he wants things, but he's not fully able to actually do the things that will give it to him, and that's his weakness. So it's interesting to see that both Viserys and Daemon are bad at taking the right course of action. Like, Viserys was too slow to action. He didn't act enough, but Daemon acts haphazardly. Like, he is chaotic. And he doesn't always know what he actually should do to gain the things that he should. And that was something that frustrated me in the first 4 episodes, was that it's like characters don't know when to actually take charge of the political maneuvering. There were so many times when I was like, why isn't Daemon trying to marry Rhaenyra? Why isn't Rhaenyra trying to marry Daemon? Like before episode 4, because it was just... And all of the times, like with the sea snake, when Viserys... spited him by marrying Alicent, that was when Rhaenyra should have stepped in and be like, okay, yo, Sea Snake, you and me, we're gonna be allies. Like, I will do something for you, you secure my line as heir. I think it would have been really cool if Rhaenyra had herself initiated the relationship with Laerna. And I also didn't understand why, when she went on that tour to find her husband, why was Laerna not, like, in that pool? But also, why not use that tour to actually pull people to your side? She is not as charismatic as Daenerys was. She is not as shining a symbol of hope and love as Daenerys was. But I really hope that she finds that charisma. We need some ladies with some charisma. We also need some men with some charisma, like the prior hand who was like Alicent's father, who was sent away. Like, he was a player, right? But he not as great as all of the players that we saw in Game of Thrones. Overall, though, I really like that it's a lot more humane than Game of Thrones was. Like, obviously still dark, people will die, Rhea was killed off like way too quickly, she was so cool. But I like that it's more human, that there is love, that there is some lighter moments, because that was sometimes what I missed in Game of Thrones. Of course, Game of Thrones is a pre-apocalypse story, like the world is about to end, so of course it's going to be dark and gritty. But I always felt it was a little unrealistic that people couldn't find any light in all of this, because I think people do seek out light and try to create happiness where they are. Overall, I'm very happy about the show. I have great hopes for it. I don't think they're going to make the same mistake as Game of Thrones. I'm not sure it's ever going to be as great as the first 4 seasons of Game of Thrones, but I do think this can become one of the greatest series of television. Like, they still have that option. We don't know where they're going with this, and they've been setting things up, and now it's all finally coming together. Really excited for this episode. Very excited for the next episode.